Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Prescott School District Board of Education regular meeting. We have been in closed session since 5 o'clock. I will call this open session to order, section of 1983 Wisconsin statutes. The next item on our agenda is to adopt the agenda. Is there any changes, Rick, that we need to call out here?
No changes from administration.
All right, so we will take a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. We'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Tanya, do you want to lead us?
Sure. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Our next item here is the recognition of visitors. And just as a reminder, the rules for public comment are as follows. Please approach the podium one at a time, stating your name, municipality, and topic you'd like to address. Allotted time is 3 minutes per individual, or 6 minutes if you're representing a group. If you're representing a group, just let us know when you approach the podium. All comments should be directed to the board and not to staff or other participants. The board will not act on any comments that are made during the meeting, and the presiding officer may direct the district administrator to follow up with that individual at a later date. Public comment section will be limited to 30 minutes unless board action is taken to extend. And as always, please refer to our public comment policy listed on the agenda for a full description of this section of the meeting. So with that, is there anybody in the audience that would care to be recognized? Just approach the podium. Yep. Take it just as a group.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. So bear with me. Municipality, Prescott. For those that don't know me, I am Jamie McDonough, taxpayer, mom of 2 kids in the district. 17-year veteran 5th grade teacher, crier when she's real mad, and your reigning educator of the year. So here we go. Several times over the past few months, we have been asked to remember our why. For those of you not in the education world, that is the latest and greatest buzz phrase. And while we have not forgotten our why, it has become increasingly difficult to keep it at the forefront of our thoughts. After months of uncertainty, we've been delivered a blow that none of us truly saw coming, even after the failed referendum. As a K-5 staff, we cannot help but feel that recent decisions are falling heavily on our backs, but more importantly, on our kids. Sit with that for a minute. While we realize that the decision to cut a section at each grade level K-5 is a done deal, unless you've ever been in a classroom of 22 5-year-olds or 26 to 30 4th and 5th grade students, you can't possibly understand what we are being asked to do. But again, the decision has been made. At this point, all we can do is ask that you take 2 minutes and really listen to how we, the K-5 staff, are feeling. Uncertain, gutted, forsaken, anxious, devastated, tension, nauseous, worried, defeated, unsupported, stressed, anxious, demoralized, concerned, leaving, uncertain, anxious, common theme here, disheartened, devastated, anxious, concerned, heartbroken, anxious, frustrated, unsettled, nervous, disappointed, heartbroken, disillusioned, apprehensive, discouraged, and abandoned. As you consider the next steps, we ask that you remember these words and know that we will continue to remember our why, which was, is, and will continue to be our students, no matter how many that might be.
Thank you,
Thank
Jamie.
you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would care to be recognized? Please approach.
Hi, I'm Tracy Collins. Prescott City is my district. I have 3 kids in the district, a 2nd grader, an 8th grader, and a junior in high school. As I stand here, I have so many different perspectives on this. I'm the mom of a National Honor Society student. I have a child with ADHD. I have a child with Jacobs syndrome. I have a high anxiety child. And when I stand up here, I am first and foremost a mom. But I'm also an educator of young children, a business owner that was affected, a member of the Malone Parent Committee for the last 12 years, a Girl Scout troop leader, and an active involved member of our community. So I want to extend first my appreciation for the fact that you are here making these difficult decisions. I was hoping that we wouldn't need to make these decisions and we would not be in this position. But we are, and I know that you have to make the difficult ones. I'm not asking you to hear anything that I say as judgment on you, for it is not. It is simply my fears and my concerns for our future. I am afraid of the loss of in-town busing is going to cause. I fear the death or serious injury of one of our children in the community. I fear the trauma of a potential young driver if an accident happens. The conditions for children walking to school safely in this town are dangerous. The lack of sidewalks, supervision, and the number of cars on the roads during drop-offs and pickup times makes walking to school for any kid very dangerous in this town. I worry about the weather and exposed skin, and our district does not have a record for closing schools due to cold. We very seldom would close for snow compared to other districts. I worry about the academics that are going to get cut. I have a child that's in a robotics class in high school, loves the class, but it is a low-attended class. There are only a few students in his class. And while I understand why that may be one of the cuts that gets made, I worry for the students who need those highly involved but low-key classes to make school worthwhile. I worry about the elementary school and the increase in students for a child that struggles in school and how that is going to affect his day-to-day when he already has difficulty going to school. He does not go to school because of our academics. He goes to school because of his teachers, because of his friends, because of those people that make a difference that are now going to have so much more to do. I worry about the students that are in athletics that are going to get cut. I worry about the students in the art because that's what makes school worthwhile to them. There isn't one piece of this that isn't hard. My ask as a mom is that whatever you cut equally and without prejudice. You cannot take the biggest chunk out of academics. You cannot take your biggest chunk out of athletics. You cannot take your biggest chunk out of the arts. It has to be equal across the 3. I ask that as a community, you look towards, sorry, I lost my place, that if we do not provide busing for a 2-mile radius within town, that we put in a policy for weather. And the policy should state something to the effect that if the air exposure to exposed skin is going to matter within a 30-minute time period for frostbite or hypothermia, that we either go virtual or cancel school for the day. We should not be risking the health of our children due to the lack of busing in town. As a business owner, so switching hats a little bit.
Hey, Tracy.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, we're over 3 minutes right now. I'm just trying to be, equal for everybody, but if you can,
I'll
I'll
wrap
let
it
you
up
finish,
quick.
but just let you
Okay.
know.
As a business owner, I run New Adventures Learning Center here in Prescott, and with the loss of in-town busing, this is greatly going to affect our business. We currently have 38 school-age children enrolled in our center with our before and after care, and we are within that 2-mile radius of non-busing. In that process we are in the process of an expansion that will increase that amount to an availability of 72 slots. We've looked in since last week the cost of transportation on our own, and it is unattainable for us. So if we cannot provide busing, and I'm shortening this down a little bit, if we cannot provide busing from the school, we will have to discontinue our school-age care if we cannot get that. I did look it up. In town, there are 3 licensed or certified group or family centers that will be affected by the loss of in-town busing. It is only the 3. And I have reached out to the school district so that these facts can be made aware. It's also going to affect our 4K enrollment, I feel, because it is not required. So if you can't get your kid to 4K, you don't have to show up for 4K, and that's going to affect our bottom line as well. Again, like I said, I'm shortening this down, so I just ask that you take those things into consideration as a family, as mom, and as our district's partner. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Anyone else care to be recognized? Come on up. Yeah, just, you guys can get in line if you want to queue up.
So I'm Katie Hillebrand. I am a parent in the district as well as an employee. And I know that these are tough conversations, tough decisions, and there is a lot of angst in our community. But I want to give a shout out and mention the people that I feel are really doing some amazing work. I want to say Veronica Ford, Christine Berger, Sue Gertis, Jackie Montreal, Courtney Johnson, Chantel Byram, Dr. Spacuzza, all of our administrators. These are not easy days, and I just want to express our thanks and thanks to the board for the difficult questions. And I always say there's really hard work being done behind the scenes, and I know that it's being done, and I want people to remember as we go forward that the really hard work is being done, and we have amazing people that are asking the hard questions, are thinking about our future with the best intentions in mind. It might not work, it might not seem that it's going to work out. So I just want to say thank you to our board, our administrators, and just so that everybody understands, there's really, really hard work and hard questions being discussed behind the scenes. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Hello, I'm Israel Haas, and I am a resident of Prescott, father of 3 kids in the Prescott School District. I think I can still count my oldest as Prescott School District. She's graduated but hasn't walked yet. My youngest is in 7th grade, and again, as I shared before, last time I was at this spot in this podium, I've chosen to stay here in Prescott and keep my kids in Prescott schools because I love and believe in Prescott schools. And personally, I'm going to just make a personal statement and then a statement for Coulee River Trails. But personally, I voted for the referendum, and I was devastated when it didn't pass because I know the consequences of the decisions, and hearing the emotions and all of the, I can't imagine the difficulty of all of the decisions you guys have to make right now, and the pain and the consequences for our community. It's extremely difficult, and so it feels almost a little trite for me to be here talking about land, but I know that is part of the decision-making process, part of the consequences that will likely ensue as we think about the future, as you consider how to best manage school district finances. So as a lead volunteer for Coulee River Trails and a member of the Coulee River Trails Steering Committee, I'm humbly reiterating the request that we made last November when we learned about the potential sale of the 14.6 acre parcel of land just south of the high school building here. And I would just humbly ask that as you're making all of your considerations here, if you decide to sell all or part of the parcel to private landowners, we'd be really grateful if you would engage us before you did that. Just because we have not yet worked with you to create a trail proposal that goes deeper than the vague desire lines that are in the City of Prescott's Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. We haven't drafted a trail design for the 14.6 acre parcel that's under consideration for sale beyond just a very preliminary sketch. That was from 2020 as just a springboard for conversation before the full scope of the trail project was defined. And as I've mentioned before, we have one of the region's top trail designers who has been volunteering this time with Coulee River Trails, along with trail specialists from the Rivers Trails and Conservation Assistance Program of the National Park Service. that we would love to bring in conversation. I know there's a lot of huge weighty things, and this is probably not something that you want to consider right now, but I hope that you would before potentially selling that land, because if we are able, if you are willing to put an easement on the title of that property, then that would guarantee, no matter what happens to the land, that would guarantee access for some kind of a trail corridor that would be a benefit for the school and from a recreational perspective and outdoor education perspective, even if the school doesn't own that land. So again, really appreciate your leadership, appreciate your service to my kids, and on a personal note, I'm going to feel some of that. My daughter's not going to have the opportunities that she has. She's already had to drop some of her honors classes, etc. So totally understand the weight, but would ask humbly that you would consider that trail consideration for that parcel of land. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Israel.
Anyone else?
Is it okay if I start a timer board?
I gotcha.
You got me?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
My name is Jacob Barker, and I'm a 10th grader here at Prescott High School. And I'm sure, like everybody sitting in this room, me and my friends at least, were very devastated to hear that the referendum failed in April. And I come to the board today to just ask that in all the considerations that are made here in this meeting and those to follow for the following school year, that that the high achievers here at all of the Prescott school districts are taken into consideration, even if not very highly, just that those who are here to do more than play sports or here to do more than hang out with friends, or those here to do more than sit in bathrooms and do nothing during class, are taken into consideration with classes that may stay or may be cut. So thank you, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jacob.
For the record, that was only like 1 minute, so you're
That's
good.
fine. I thought it a good question to ask.
You can gift those 2 minutes to somebody.
No, you can't. That's not in their policy. Anybody else care to be recognized? All right. We are going to move on. Thank you. Next item is good news around the district, which is ironic, but we're going to go with that. And Rick, did you want to?
There are good days and there are bad days, but there are still amazing things done by our staff and our students every single day. We did have Mackenzie, who was here, then turned out that she is double booked. She was going to introduce our theater program, and so I am going to have Thomas come and give an update on the musical and the work that he has done across the year. And so, Thomas Speltz, you can introduce and bring anybody else you want, but it is your
Thank you.
update.
Thank you. My name is Thomas Speltz. I'm the head of the theater department here in the school district of Prescott, and we just wrapped up our 2023-2024 theater season with our final show, High School Musical, which was the High School Musical. It was a huge success, and we are really incredibly proud of the work that these kids did. It was a really special show because this was the show that we were in the middle of rehearsing when we were shut down in 2020, and did not get to produce and do at the end of the day. So it was really special to revisit this piece of theater and finally get it on its feet. And it was a lot of fun, and it was great to have alumni come back and see the show. So that was great. Previously in the year, we started our year off by participating in the the Wisconsin State One Act Festival, which was our first year participating in that. We did our one act play, The Importance of Being Earnest. We took that all the way to the state level, and we won every award that that you can win at the state level, including 2 Outstanding Actor Awards, a Critics' Choice Award, an Outstanding Technical Theater Award, Outstanding Ensemble Award, and an Outstanding Director Award, which was very cool and very fun. So we hope to continue the trend. And then shortly thereafter, we produced our middle school musical, which was Willy Wonka Jr., which was our highest selling show ever here in the Prescott Theater department, which was very, very cool, and drummed up a lot of excitement for Then High School Musical, which we just wrapped up about 3 weeks ago. So it was our biggest season and most successful season ever, and we're looking forward to bringing more live theater to the Prescott stage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas. I believe Michael and I are the last two to report.
All right, I've got some elementary and intermediate good news. The Malone Parent Committee has their carnival coming up this Friday from 5 to 7:30. It is going to be hosted at the middle school just because the facility and the setup works well there. The online auction is open, and I encourage everyone to both attend the carnival but then to bid often. Next week, we have our spring music concerts for our elementary age students. On Monday, the intermediate school this concert is at 6 o'clock. And on Tuesday, the kindergarten and first grade are at 5:30, and second and third grade are at 6:45. Those, again, will be hosted by the middle school. So we appreciate the middle school staff and janitor Bob Feierheisen for helping out with both events and the coordination of that. And we hope to see many of you in the audience. Doors do open 30 minutes before the concert, and there is a Malone Parent Committee book fair happening both before and after each of the concerts as well.
And Michael, stay up there because we also have kind of joint news, and it also is with Sandy Strand. As you know, we've been working with Northwest Journey Counseling and Guidance, and we are awaiting formal certification approval on the 25th, which is next week, next Thursday. But there are changes happening in the lower level, and do you want to just share some about the move-in date?
Yeah, we're actually really excited. They have started moving in some of their personal belongings, setting up the rooms for group therapy and individual therapy. Michael and I and Nicole Lenzner met with them today just to talk about logistics. We are hoping to open our doors to only Prescott students on April 29th. The certification process should go smoothly. It takes them a while to get their NPI number, which allows them to do billing. So they're actually going to start working with our students essentially pro bono until their NPI number comes through. And we do have a handful of students that will be starting, but even if we only have 2 or 3, they are going to be opening their doors likely on April 29th. So we're really excited, and we're keeping it to just Prescott until we're off and running, and then probably expand to neighboring districts in the summer.
And I wanted to thank Sandy, her crew, our principals and counselors and school psychologists who have been working with families and our teachers to be able to identify and work with the families to make sure that this transition and program is a benefit. And it's a year-round program, and we are really fortunate to have the space and this future partnership. Thank you. I wanted to, obviously, this is the second meeting in consecutive weeks. I wanted to thank and kind of stand on the shoulders of Katie Hillbrand to thank the administrative team and our staff, teachers, for all the work that they did leading up to April 2nd. I can't imagine a more creative group, a more innovative and passionate group that was fighting with regards to making sure the community clearly understood what was at stake, and to make sure that public education was elevated and in front of everybody to understand how a community interfaces with the services that are provided by public education from birth to community ed. I could not be prouder of the investments that the school board has put in place to make sure that the needs of all students are met, whether or not it's high, middle, or low performing, as well as making sure that as we have making reductions, that we are still keeping the focus focus on ensuring that we have interventionists, that we have programming to meet the needs of students and differentiations in the regular classroom, as well as providing extra resources. Albeit, we understand that that is going to be restricted, and some of that is going to be obviously challenging. All of our jobs are going to be different. I worked with our admin team to talk about the acronym. They may get tired of me quoting Jimmy Casas, but he has the acronym of change, and a lot of the stuff that we are going through of clarity of communication, helping the individuals that are impacted the most to be able to make sure that we take action, and that is what we are asking the board to do these last 2 weeks, is to take action so that we can retool and regroup. And after that, I have to remember how to spell change, but basically to be able to navigate the changes that are going forward, to generate new ideas, and then to make sure that we continue to evaluate those changes so that we can make sure that we snap back and continue to provide high-performing students, albeit in a very, very difficult situation. So thank you to the administrative team, to our staff, and understand that these adjustments, cuts are impacting staff, children, and families, and ultimately the larger community.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to business. The first item is consent agenda. In the consent, we have the March 20th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes, the April 10th, 2024 special board meeting minutes, the finance report, non-licensed staff, personal hires, resignations, retirements, employment, change of non-licensed staff, none. Acceptance of the PI 906 self-evaluation of non-discrimination and equality of educational opportunity. Annual football summer trip to Holman, and accept the receipt of Tanya Holb and Pat Block signed and notarized EL 154 official oaths. Follow-up from the election of April 2nd, 2024. I can't believe I didn't stumble there. So that's everything in the consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything out of consent? No. If not, I will adopt the consent agenda as presented. Any objections? No objections. We're going to move on. Thank you. Next item is consider hires, resignations, retirements, employment change of licensed staff.
This is the time of year where it's very fluid with regards to the number and amount of individuals that are changing positions. Some of these are due to natural occurrences, but also will be occurring over the next few weeks due to decisions that we have to make related to reducing our budget by over $1.8 million heading into fall next year. At this time, we have the following resignations: Bryce McCauley, PHS Mathematics; Aaron Elson Peter, kindergarten teacher; Amy Bartles, high school special education; Stacy Sipakanis, second grade; and Kaylee Armbrust, a middle school math teacher. All have submitted resignations.
Board, any questions on any of these comments? Open mic? No? Then we will take a motion to approve all licensed resignations.
I move to approve all licensed resignations listed above.
I'll second.
So motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that one carries. And one more, Rick.
At this time, we have an additional retirement from Prescott Elementary, third grade teacher Pam Olson. Pam, you have her retirement letter. I couldn't be more proud to see a staff member at the end of one's career to basically state how prideful she was with regards to the career choice that she made, and to be able to retire from a district that she truly treasured.
Anybody have any comments on this one?
No comments.
Yeah, and Pam, thank you for all of your service. If you're out there, I don't know if she's here or not, but we appreciate all the service that she has provided. And this was one that was announced per the handbook change of the language that she could retire and get benefits after the what is it, February 28th? Forget.
February 1st.
February 1st. So, Pam, thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done. So we'll take a motion to approve all licensed retirees.
I move to approve all licensed retirees listed above.
I'll second.
Motion and a second here, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries. Next is to consider the first reading of.
Actually, we had a late minute signed contract that came in, so we do have a new hire for the high school science. I wanted to thank Chantel Byram. She and I were able to connect with Danielle Huddy. Mr. Figge was able to have a signed contract returned and interviewed, and so Danielle Huddy is accepting a position with the Prescott High School for science for the 24-25 academic year.
Board, any questions?
No.
All right, and I just wanted to bring this up, Rick, because we are going through, a lot of budget cuts, but this is a replacement of a staff member that recently retired, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That is correct.
And it's a spot that we have to fill.
Correct.
So I just wanted to call that out. All right, thank you. We can take a motion to approve the new hire, Daniel Huddy.
I move to approve new hire for 2024-25 academic year for Prescott High School Science Department.
I'll second.
That's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that carries. Now we move on to item 3, consider first reading of updated or new board policies.
Yes, so as you know, we work with Neola. They are the ability to update policies as statutes and legal issues change. There have been some changes, and we're going to review 3 of them tonight. They're very straightforward. The first one, there's a lot of regulations with regards to federal grants. Every once in a while, we do receive federal grants, and you have to make sure that you're in compliance with your policies. It is straightforward. Anything in green is language that has been added since the previous time. Basically, any time, then this is related to kind of ESSER dollars where districts were using federal funds for mechanical or changes to their air systems and things like that coming out of COVID. Federal guidelines do require that you follow the Davis-Bacon prevailing wage requirements. We did not use our ESSER dollars in that fashion, but you do have to have it in your policy. In addition, there are policies with regards to ethics and conflict of interest of the board, administration, and support staff, and then competition. Basically, there's gradients with regards to when you have to go out to bid. It's $250,000 of when you go out, and then when it is a sealed bid, what the process is. We have followed that process historically with regards to what we've done with new construction. However, this is just pertaining to federal grants and federal grants. If you have other projects that are below 250, it's just that you do go out and seek additional or you ask for qualified suppliers to provide that service. Basically, for competitive proposals, the threshold is now 250. It's up from 150. Otherwise, there is really no other language for us to consider, and we just wanted to make sure that you were aware, and we would be bringing it next month for second reading and adoption.
Anybody have any questions on this one or comments?
I didn't, no.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Tanya.
Yeah, good choice, but no.
All right, Greg, let's go on to the next one.
Okay, the next one is related to student accounts. Student accounts are Fund 60. You receive that update on a monthly basis. The most important thing to understand about Fund 60 is they are accounts that the district is a custodian for. So there's student activities. When Mr. Canfield takes our students down to Disney World, it's the opportunity where they fundraise and things like that. The money is held in escrow, and then they go. When we go to trips abroad, it's where the students will put their money. As we raise for other clubs and the things like that, it just walks through, it basically walks through that the activity director and the district administrator make sure that we always have a list of all of the student accounts. If we're going to add a new account or group, usually they come to the board for acceptance. At this time, the finance coordinator serves as the treasurer. Again, we are just overseers of the account. What's really important on Fund 60, and this changed a few years ago where Fund 60 broke into Fund 21, which is kind of fundraising, and student accounts, is that student accounts are the expenses are approved by and included with the student voice, and it can't be just administration making those changes. So that's the update with regards to the language, with regards to Fund 60.
Questions, anyone? Comments?
Nope.
Straightforward.
Let's keep going, Rick.
All right, last one is with regards to toxic chemicals. There are toxic chemicals in our science department. We do go through a procedure every year with regards to MyCoica and AEI. They walk through to make sure they're in locked cabinets, that they're in fireproof procedures. It also includes when we do weed and feed. We also do guard against infestation for our kitchens with regards to bugs and rodents. And so we do, on an annual basis, put that information on the website, and this is just updating about the requirements, that we do follow the requirements, and that information is always posted on our annual notice that occurs at the beginning of the year in August on the website under the school board listing.
Questions, comments on this one?
No.
My only H there is like all crossed off, and that's, I think, the notification part. Is it, if I was reading that right, it was just that we would notify people if there was going to be any work done?
Well, so what we do is, so Mike, when we sign the contracts kind of in the spring, we basically do fall, winter, spring applications for weed and feed. That information is documented at each of the school sites in the district offices if anybody wants to request it. We do put it up on our website with regards to what the applications are, and then anytime our fields are treated, you see the 72-hour code that just says you have to stay off for 72 hours. So that still occurs. We crossed off whether or not every time somebody came in, rove or something like that, that you would have to email families, and we take it with regards to the website.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, anybody else? I think those are the only three, right?
Yes.
So we can, if there's no further discussion, we can take a motion here.
I move to accept the first reading of the above noted policies with or without the following edits or considerations. I'm going to say with the following edits or considerations.
Should come back.
I'll second.
Yeah, it'll come back
That's
one
a
more.
motion and a second. All in favor?
I guess I didn't say that part.
That one also
I didn't
carries.
say that.
Next one is nominate CC 11 delegate.
And I'm going to defer to our current school board member who also sits on the CISA 11 school board, and that's Vicki Rudolph, to explain what the annual convention is and her recommendation for how that's handled.
It's every delegate has a 3-year term. We've got, I think, 4 delegates that are up this year. All the CISA members are divided into districts, and we basically just run through kind of an introduction, explain to everybody what CISA does, what they have. The delegates then are nominated. Delegates are voted on by each of their areas, and then following that election, then we roll right into the June CISA board meeting to go through the June meeting a week ahead of time versus going back again the following week to run the regular board meeting. But it's just a great time for people who don't know what CISA has available. They do have it open, it's just not for the current delegates. Other board members can come. And this is just a way, I think, everybody gets a chance to meet everybody. Not everybody in the district or in each district has a representative, so it's nice to kind of get to know different board members that are within our area, like from Spring Valley or from Plum City. They're all invited to come, so it's a nice little meet and greet. But yeah, and just sort of present what CISA has available to schools, what options and programs they have, and in the state that the schools are in right now, CISA is kind of upping their game as to what they're going to start trying to offer to schools, knowing that schools need a lot more help, and everything CISA operates on is grant money. They apply for all the grants so that they can help the local districts that belong to their CISA districts. So yeah, I'll be more than happy to represent our area. I'm not up for re-election, but I will go again.
You'll be our delegate?
Does anybody want to
Yeah.
contest the delegation here? No.
Anybody want to
No,
come
you
with
don't,
me?
you don't want to challenge Vicki?
Thanks, Vicki.
Twice. Yeah.
There's value in continuing your networking with them, so.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Keep doing it.
It's nice to get to know the board, a couple of board members over in Ellsworth, so it is nice to have in Hudson. So we've got some local board members around here that we can contact if needed for things, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's nice.
Awesome, so we need a
So
motion to...
each district in CISA 11 gets to have a representative, and you need to make a formal motion.
To approve Vicki as our board
Yep.
CC 11 delegate nominee? Okay, so
I move to approve Vicki Rudolph as Prescott's Board CC 11 delegate nominee.
I'll second.
that's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That one also carries. We are now on to item 5, consider a motion to eliminate C-team athletics for the 24-25 school year, as well as other budgetary reductions to the athletic budget.
So this evening, obviously, is the second back-to-back, well, it's a back-to-back, not the second back-to-back. It is, last week, we met with three very specific, targeted, and needed time-bound decisions. We are back with you to present information about the athletic budget, kind of the Sesame Street song, one of these things might not belong, and you're trying to figure out why. And it's because athletics has costs that are associated with building the budget. We also have decisions to make with regards to our partners in the Middle Border Conference, and we are talking about Fund 10. And Fund 10 is the operations of our district. Fund 10 is what we asked our community to assist by providing an additional $1.2 million to be able to continue the level of programming and the outcomes and the staffing that ran those programs and produced the outcomes. It is a balancing act. We talked about this last week with regards to the 3 buckets. Prescott is very proud of its tradition of excellence with regards to the academics, and we talked a lot about that heading into April 2nd. We have a fantastic arts program that continues to grow and fill the Performing Arts Center, and thank you to Thomas for the presentation on the year long, but also it happens in the summer through summer school as well. And tonight we're here to talk about athletics. Our goal is to present to you how we wanted to apply the rubric with regards to what we decided upon last week. And so we organized around 4 key guiding principles to be able to do that. We know that there's been a lot of information going back and forth. We have had very little time to kind of retool and to be prepared for kind of these cuts, but we don't have the luxury of time. Mainly because we have people waiting on us to make a decision so that they understand which fields, how do we schedule referees, how do they make sure that they have teams and schedules ready. Remember, August 1st is when we kick off the schedule. And so there's a lot of logistics that go into planning. And so I have asked our activities director to come up, but I wanted to make sure that our administrative team representing K-5, middle school, and high school were also here to talk about how this impacts with regards to Fund 10. And so I just wanted to remind everybody that $650,000 began to be cut during this academic year. These were management-driven with regards to trying to carve out, because we have an unbalanced budget of $900,000 heading into the year. It has to do with the legislature not funding public education for 6 out of the previous 8 years, giving the district $325 per pupil this year, and then $325 next year. Understand that that is well below the inflationary rate. Understand that that was 2 years coming out of federal funding and high inflation. The $325 is based on enrollment. We went through this last week, so I won't go through it, but you understand that heading into next year with declining enrollment, the $325 amounts to $214,000 added to our budget. $214,000. You know that with regards to healthcare, fuel, and things like that, and being able to provide, what this meeting is not about, is to hold or present any cuts to benefits or to salaries. And so we do know that this has already been in place. We have the bus route efficiencies, and we knew that we were going to be reducing budgets by 10% across the district. Then April 2nd occurred. We now have to make an additional $1.2 million worth of cuts. Last week, we made the adjustments on the left-hand side with regards to staffing. We also have eliminated in-town busing. We have started to look at school and departmental cuts, and then the overlap with program and position reductions. So tonight is really about completing that puzzle that's required so that we can deconstruct a budget that is already in place, be able to start to figure out how we rebuild, and when and if we have any dollars available to us to be able to build back some of the programs that might be going away. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Andrew Caudell, that if you could just explain what our guiding question is and how we're trying to focus on the target that you've been given with regards to the reductions that have to occur.
Yeah, so after the failed levy on April 2nd, the athletics budget needs to be reduced by 10 to 15%. So the target dollar is $45,000. So looking across the athletics budget, my goal was to find a way to cut that from our budget while impacting as few students as possible. So as we were reviewing our budget, all of our teams, ultimately we decided to land on our level threes. On the next slide for...
Can you explain just what level 1, 2, and 3 refer to?
Yeah, so level 1 is going to will be considered varsity. Level 2, junior varsity. Level 3 will be C team. Some conferences call it JV2. So looking at our athletics budget, our equipment costs, I know that came up a little bit last week. One thing that I want to highlight, that this year, equipment and supplies teams have spent in the range of $70,000, of which 15-ish came from their district budget. So as of right now, the vast majority is coming from fundraising sources, and so the concern is putting more stress on the fundraising sources is going to be an issue going forward. So as I was looking at making cuts, avoiding putting more stress on fundraising was something that I wanted to focus on, and also avoiding creating additional costs later was something I wanted to avoid as well, and delaying equipment, kicking things down the road, especially when you're looking at replacing old items, expired items. Those are things we wanted to avoid. The other thing that came up last week is middle school. Middle school athletics has cost the district about $45,000 this year. That is coming out of Fund 80, which is PCR. That is a separate levy. It is not Fund 10. That was moved out of Fund 10 prior to the school year as a budget saving measure. So that is not really on the table, doesn't need to be, because it already was taken off the table. So just want to make sure that is clear as well. So looking at the options, so level 3 is the C team, as you would probably refer it to, but level 3 would be that third team. So the first option is the option that we talked about last week, would be a reduction of level 3 across the board in all of our programs. That would be a cost savings of a little over $24,000, which is over halfway to the cut that needs to be made from the athletics department. We went over last week the reasons behind that. Some of it had to do with our participation numbers being lower than we've had in the past. Some of it had to do with its less impact to the organization as a whole. It's easier to turn it back on in 25-26 and other cuts that we had to make in our department if we were forced to do that. So that was the option that was given to you last week. We provided numbers for you that you asked for 8th grade. Generally, rule of thumb that at least I've seen is anywhere from 50 to 75% of 8th graders will return in their 9th grade year. That's not exact. We really don't know. But based on what we've seen in the past, we do expect a lower number than usual level 3 teams for next year. So going into potential other option that was reviewed after our meeting last week was to see how do we make a cut that needs to be made that we can stomach, that we can also make other cuts without violating some of the principles that I looked at and cutting in the athletics department. And what we looked at was essentially it's a hybrid cut of the level 3s. And what that hybrid cut looks like is that if the team has enough students to field a third level, the team would be permitted to compete in contests that are on the road. They would not compete at home. The justification behind that is the 2 cuts that were a part of the main cut to the level 3 was the coaches and the officials. If you're going to have the team, you have to have the coach. We have to have the adult. If we aren't going to fund the adult, we can't have the team because we have to have supervision. So we have to cut the officials. So we have to cut the home events. So for the fall, the budget savings would be a little over $2,500. That would cover football and girls volleyball. In the winter, that cut would be a little over $5,000. That would be girls basketball and boys basketball. And in the spring is different than the others. Spring, we do cut the coaches because the projected numbers are far below the other seasons, and that we just don't see any way those 2 teams, baseball and softball, have enough students to field 3 teams. So in those 2 sports, it is the officials and the coaching allocations, and that gives us a little over $6,400. And so that cut gives us about, I think it was like $14,000. And so it's almost a 24. It's not quite. I can find the other 10 elsewhere in the budget to get to the same target amount of $45,000. It is a cut. It's not the full cut. It creates some opportunity if that is the desire to get to.
Andrew, and just as we kind of went through this, one of the things obviously is the benefits of, while it is the worst, it is the best of the worst choices, one would say, right? There are no good choices that the board is being faced with. If there was, we would have used it and had the magic wand. We're looking at enrollment. We wanted to be data-based. We asked our staff at every level, K-5, at 6 through 8, and at the high school to look at class sizes, the amount of students that are in the programs.
The high school is elevating up their level to 20 or more. Middle school, based on some of the reductions or not filling positions. And we thought it was only best to be able to say, what are the enrollment numbers, participation numbers when you think about athletics? It is our recommendation that it is important for us to make a decision, to have action tonight, so that we can inform the coaches whether or not they're being retained or not, whether or not they're being paid or not. For Sue Gertis to be able to build the budget, understand that if you don't redline level 3 competition, and I'll start with spring, where we have the fewest participation, we don't believe it's going to exist. It would be in our best interest to make that, declare it now, so that those dollars aren't then earmarked, because we have to balance the budget. If you think you're going to run it, you still have to put the dollars there. And so anytime you take Fund $10 and you place it in the spring, those are dollars that we cannot use in the fall for athletics. They are Fund $10 that I can't use anywhere else in the organization. And so if you kind of go backwards, in my estimation and from the recommendation of our administrative team, we believe that the first place to start would be, if we're going to be talking about elimination of levels, we still are talking about, will students be able to participate in all athletic events that are currently offered in 24-25? Yeah, so if we're talking, let's say baseball, softball, you don't have enough students, those 9th graders would just elevate to level 2 because you don't have enough for that 3rd level. Everyone essentially moves up 1. So any student that wouldn't make the varsity roster would be put on the junior varsity roster.
The equivalent would be for our teaching staff, where we went from 4 sections to 3, 5 sections to 4. We're saying that we're suggesting instead of having 3 levels, you go to 2. To us, we believe that the numbers merit for you to have a consideration of that. You do have to balance Title IX. Can you speak to Title IX with regards to fall and winter?
Yeah, so looking at Title IX, we have to ensure that decisions that we're making are equitable in opportunity. So if we're going to create an opportunity in football, we need to create the opportunity in volleyball. If we're going to create the opportunity in boys basketball, we need to have it in girls basketball, baseball to softball. That's why you see girls basketball and option 2 being a part of the recommendation, even though their numbers, we project they would not have enough. If a 3rd level does not go because of student participation, we're fine. We have to make sure it's not because we didn't offer it because of an administrative decision based on a decision tonight, and then boys basketball was allowed to go, for example. We cannot have that. So we have to ensure that the output is given the same opportunity. So that's why the recommendation looks the way it does. Baseball and softball are together in the spring. They're both are tied in our recommendation. Same with fall, same with winter. That's why option 1 is all together. We have to ensure that we're doing the best we can to make the equitable decisions to ensure we're following Title IX.
Andrew, can I just ask, and it sounds like you just clarified it, but Title IX is really about per season, not the whole school year. So like if if football was able to have a C team, and then we like volleyball, okay, so like if there wasn't a volleyball C team and wasn't a basketball C team, that's a boy sport, girl sport, but they're different seasons, so it has to be within the same season to have Title IX, or can it be balanced throughout the whole year?
It's the whole year.
Okay.
And so, but based on our recommendation, we believe that there would be enough students to run a 3rd level in football and volleyball.
Right.
But boys basketball is a 50-50. Girls basketball, we think, is a no. But we got to make sure that if we're going to give boys basketball the opportunity to go forward, girls basketball is given the same opportunity. So at the end of every school year, I take a look to ensure that our athletics participation mirrors our enrollment the best it can. If it doesn't, we take a look why. So usually it does. We just have to make sure that we're looking at the same opportunities. That's why it's important that if we have the same amount of paid coaches in all of our sports, because if we tell sports, you have to go ahead and you're responsible to fundraise for your third levels, if some can and some can't, we could be in a Title IX issue.
Questions? Yeah, I'll just stay down here. Tanya, do you have any questions, any more questions or comments here?
Well, I mean, I do. One of my thoughts was I have some concern with not having a C-team football team because I don't believe it's very safe for our young ninth graders to be able to play at that JV level with size and speed comparisons. Because it's such a contact sport. So if football was able to have a C team, and then we didn't have a C team for volleyball, girls sport, and didn't have a C team for basketball, like, you're saying really we have to have another boys sport that doesn't have a C team, or does it have to be, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so on the football side, if we had two levels, we would ensure that our opponent would be a like opponent.
Okay.
So if Baldwin Woodville had two levels and our second level represented more of a third level, we would ask to play their third level. So we wouldn't set them up for that.
Okay.
On your second question, based on what we see for numbers, we're tying the seasons together because the numbers look that way.
Yeah, okay.
If we did it solely based on what we think will pan out, boys basketball could potentially go forward and girls basketball would be left out. That would be an issue. Even though we don't think girls basketball would have enough participants. And if they don't, that's okay, because it's based on, we can't control who signs up. We can't make people sign up. So that's why it looks that way.
And then I just had money questions. So, because I am really aware, and it feels really unfortunate that we had to start with the left side of that pie and start with classrooms and teachers. And that was because of some obligations we have with notification that we have to follow. So we had to do that first. And I wish it could be the other way around, because it just sends a bad feel out there. But I am really aware of these numbers, and like your goal is 45,000. And if I see this proposal here that you kind of, we added up each season cuts, I think it was only like 14,000. And so I'm concerned of where the rest, and I know I saw something on there that says we'll figure it out, but I'd like to know how we would figure that out. And so for me, it is, and I know I don't want to put any more pressure on fundraising and stuff, but we don't need to have we don't need to buy all this stuff every year. So it's not, the pressure doesn't have to be there, we just maybe don't need it. And I know that stinks, but like reducing that budget, and then we talked about uniforms last time as well, reducing that budget as well. So I guess I would like to get closer to that 14,000, great, but I'd like to get closer to that $45,000 that we've agreed upon.
So we have.
Okay.
Like the $45,000, I can get there.
Okay.
I need to know what this decision is to know how I'm going to get there.
Okay.
Like with this out there, this is the biggest chunk.
Yep.
And so knowing one way or the other where this is going to land will help me kind of close the rest of it off. But I mean, I've been staring at this for a long time. So I can get there with both of these options. I can get there. If we don't do either one, we're going to impact all three levels in all sports.
Yep. And really the only sports, because we asked last time, I don't know who asked last time, probably Pat maybe, but the only three sports that really have a C team that we know are running for it. So we can cut C teams all across the board, or we can kind of do it based on numbers and stuff like that. But the only three that you thought would be able to offer a C team next year was girls volleyball, boys football, and boys basketball. And so really we're just impacting, for the whole $24,000 that you originally asked for, we're impacting three teams. And they would essentially do kind of the same thing, where they would embed within, I know because I have girls and we've had this experience for years where we have just enough to maybe have a C team or borderline, but nobody else does, or we're just shy a couple, so we end up piling big teams on. And so we've had this experience for years. And so I would assume it would be very similar, that you're just going going to have a really big JV team that you roster sometimes for games, sometimes you don't. It's going to be dependent on your competition, probably. Yeah. And that gets us to the 24,000.
Yeah, so that's why I try to find something that was impacted as few as possible. Again, like Dr. Spikuza said, it's the best of the worst.
So if we don't go with the original proposal, which was about $10,000 more that you were able to cut, where does that other $10,000 roughly come from?
Other parts of the budget that, from athletics to parts of the teams that we've identified that we can lose that don't impact students as much. So we've looked at the whole thing. We just got to get 45 off, and I recommend Dr. Spikuza that I can find 10 more, and so this second option is viable to bring forward.
One option that we're looking at right now is, I think it's, we, on an annual basis, have a rotation for uniforms. Our track team needs new uniforms. They are ripped, they are yellowed, they don't really show any pride with regards to having them to show up. Andrew has been working with a couple outfits. We have the opportunity to get a discount rate if we purchase this year. We are looking to see, based on other funds, Fund 21, and other funds available, that they might be able to move it into this fiscal year, which would save $8,000. And the actual bidding that we're getting is about a $2,500 reduction, right? So right there is about the $10,000. We're a little bit leery on equipment because one of the things that happens is when you delay on equipment, you create a dam. Is that you can keep going, but sooner or later it's like an HVAC system, it quits, and then you're going to have to repair it, and it's pay me now or pay me later, and when you pay me later, you're paying with more dollars. The reverse is, I think, what we're a little bit concerned about is if there isn't a decision, Middle Border Conference wants to start scheduling.
Sure.
And we want to also tell our coaches, do you have a job or don't you have a job? Because they want to either maybe hook up with another district, and so we wanted to make sure that occurred. Also, if we don't do this, we know that then we have to make $24,000 cut across all athletics, and now you're getting into teams like golf that don't even have 3 levels of competition that are going to have a major reduction that would occur. We also then would have to come back to you and start talking about, are there some, in this case, we're balancing it based on participation. But do you know that the cost to run sports on average with a coach and the athlete ranges from $220 to $2,200? One of the thoughts might be, if you're paying for a sport at $2,200, you maybe want to turn that off. The difficulty is when you turn that off, we're losing engagement and opportunities, and it's very hard to turn something back on. Again, it's the best of the worst situations. We believe that by looking at levels of competition, every single sport still gets to occur. Every student gets to practice. Every student would still have some competition, but we wouldn't be interfering with every single line on the budget, and it also allows us to make a decision and move on and rebuild. Sir?
This has already been addressed and talked about, but as an administrator, when we have the balance up there of the academics, the arts, and the athletics, as an administrator who's had to make pretty deep cuts already on the academic side of things, and the heart of those cuts were numbers. We went strictly by numbers, and we made the decision based by enrollment numbers. It seems like in an athletic standpoint, when it comes to level 3 sports, numbers should be another consideration in that situation, right? Our students who have 26 kids in a classroom, they're still going to be able to participate. It's going to be a different kind of participation, but they're able to participate. The same as level C students, level C athletes. They're still going to be able to participate. It's going to be a different kind of participation, but in the heart of where we make the academic decisions based on numbers, it seems like that heart should still stick in the athletics decisions too. Numbers should help drive those decisions. And if we're going to make the decisions on the academic side based on numbers, we should make the decision on the athletic side based on numbers. And the numbers here tell you what to do.
Tanya, do you have anything else?
No.
Pat? Andrew, you mentioned potential Title IX concerns around fundraising. Did I hear that right? What would that be?
So for example, if Team A and Team B were asked to fundraise for, let's say, a third level, and Team A was able to get it done and Team B wasn't, and then Team B had students that couldn't play, since they're both public school outputs, we would have a Title IX issue. So yeah, so basically what I ask myself when coaches want to fundraise for something is, my internal question is, what happens if they don't? And if the answer is they just don't get a luxury, then you don't get a luxury. But if the answer is they don't get something they absolutely need to run the activity in either a way that has to be run, safety, efficiently, make sure the district isn't held at risk, then I look at that's something maybe we should be covering as a district. So a third level would be student participation, student opportunity, and so that would fall under a Fund 10 obligation versus a Fund 21.
Sarah, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot. I do have a question for you. I hope this is fair. So when you talk about numbers, help me understand, are you talking dollar numbers, or are you talking?
I'm talking human collateral numbers. So, like the decision was made across the board, we're going to drop a section in every grade level, right? At least 2 of our grade levels are going to have 26 students in a class.
Right.
And there was no conversation about, well, do we maintain that number so that there's 20 students in the class instead of 26 students in a class? Because without a doubt, there is a different academic experience if there's 20 students in a class versus 26 students in a class. So those students, when they're in a classroom in second grade with 26 kids, their experience is very different. And so it does come down to, well, money, because we cut a teacher to have 26 kids in a class, but also experience-wise too.
Sure.
So when we talk about level 3 athletics and we talk about the numbers, yeah, that level 2 is probably going to be higher numbers, just like our second grade classrooms are going to be, and that experience is going to look different. But is it so different that we make a different decision based on numbers for athletics than we did for academics?
And don't answer this, please, because I don't want you to. Right now, I'm conflicted between, we're talking about numbers, we're talking literal human resources, but we're also talking about budgets, dollars, right? And I'm worried, or I'm conflicted of the equity, or maybe that's not the right way to put it, between the two. So I'm wondering, and don't answer this, but I'm maybe looking at my fellow board members too, is it dollars, right, that we need to be conflicted here, and or on the people side? Because I think athletics-wise, and I'm just speaking for myself, right, this is just my turn, I personally, right, I would keep the C team athletics, but absolutely cut the 45. If that was the mark we needed to hit, that's where my opinion would be. But if we don't feel that that's still not meeting that equity piece, maybe I don't quite. I'd be curious to hear others' perspectives there.
Well, I think Andrew's saying that if we don't take option 1 or 2, he can't cut the 45 out of the budget. Like, we have to choose one of those.
So Andrew's being tasked with hitting a number, right? But is it more than just a number we're trying to hit? Right? So when we talk about the balance, put the scale back up there, whatever. Is it purely a number, or do we need to do some additional thinking on the equity between the 3 disciplines? Anyway, those are the questions that
I think I follow, but we're trying to cut equally. We're trying to remain equitable across all programs, so all areas of the district, right? So athletics has everybody has to cut.
So here. Let me rephrase. What if you could fundraise, right, for cut all your coaches, okay? And then does athletics have an opportunity to fundraise for coaches?
No.
I think you explained that with the Title IX. You can't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I should let you answer.
I think if we cut all coaches, they would just quit and walk away.
Well, just
That's just my opinion. I'd just be honest.
hang with me here,
Yeah.
right? Does athletics have the ability to fundraise to pay coaches' salaries?
We do. It's what if we don't? I think what would happen is you would have some teams have stronger fundraising power than others. It's just the nature of it. I think some teams would hit it no problem and be okay. I think some teams wouldn't. And I do think, and I've seen this, that I think our boys teams fundraise easier than some of our girls teams. I would have some serious concerns about the Title IX implications of that.
And because each fundraising has its own entity, its own group fundraising, if we had fundraising for general athletics budget, that would be completely different. For athletics across the board, it would be distributed equally. That would be much easier, but this isn't because it's the football group, it's the boys basketball group, it's the baseball group, softball, everybody's divided up.
And not everybody has a fundraising group.
And not everybody has fundraisers or the time to do it.
I would also worry about just retaining our coaches. Like if I was kind of, holding my breath in hopes of being fundraised to keep my salary, I don't know if you can only wait for so long. Yeah.
Let's get the opinions on the other side here, and then we'll kind of go back again if we have to, okay? So Vicki, why don't you jump in here if you have some questions or comments?
Well, my biggest concern was, same as Tanya's with football, because I have heard that from parents who have ninth graders who play football, and the size difference in the kids matters. You stated that that's going to be taken into consideration, and my biggest concern last week was, are these kids still going to be able to participate? I don't want them as freshmen coming in and just had done everything in 7th and 8th grade, and then all of a sudden this next year come in as freshmen and go, oh, now I don't get to do anything as a freshman? Like, that's horrible. Well, we're keeping the practice, so therefore you're still maintaining your coaching level so that you've got the right number of coaches for kids. We're just eliminating that competition at that level, but those kids are still, for volleyball, for boys basketball, and for volleyball, football, boys basketball, are still going to have, the coaches are still going to give them opportunities to rotate through, correct?
In option 1. In option 2, they would retain some competitions only in the road contests. So let's use basketball, for example. The third level would probably play 10 games because they would retain the road contest in our schedule that was already built.
But that's still maintaining that C level of competition. What I'm talking about is if C is gone, those kids are still going to have those opportunities. Those girls are still going to get to play volleyball. Those boys are still going to get to practice basketball and hopefully sit on a JV team, sit on the bench, be able to play boys football with JV. Are going to try and rotate those boys through. If you've got some of the smaller kids, if you're looking like, all right, let's put a bunch of freshmen on and let's ask Baldwin if we can have their C team play ours, JV, that you're going to make every effort available to do that for our kids.
Yes.
And for their parents, so they know that this is how the athletics is going to be handled.
Yeah, so in that scenario, we would offer 2 competition levels. If we had enough for 3, that third level would be essentially a practice squad. And if they earned a spot as the season went along, they can definitely do that. We just would not, in option 1, we would not offer a third level of competition.
That's all I need to know.
I think I asked my questions during the work session, most we had, but I think Tanya had a really good point. I think all she was saying was, she's looking at the numbers, and so am I, and what you're cutting is not what you're saying you need to cut. And she was just asking, I think, like, where's the other cutting come from? Because here's the deal, and let's be clear, we know there's deep cuts. We understand that. some of us probably more than other because we work in this education system. We get it. But here's what I'm saying. She just wants, like, I just want to know, like, the C teams are gone, that's great. But please don't tell me you're gonna go back and cut an entire sport. That's what I'm worried about. I'm gonna be honest with you, just like I would with theater, just like we do 5th grade, 4th grade, we go home at night and, you know, for me anyways, this is really emotional and I get that. So,
This would
that's
avoid
what
it.
she's coming for?
Yeah, there would be no reason.
This would avoid it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
this
think
would
that's
avoid,
where-
that's important. That's exactly why it's the best of the worst, because it would be done. We would be able to, there would be.
I think that's
Yeah.
where she,
Yeah.
I would ask the same question that Tanya asked. Where would the other, to get to that 45,000, where would that come from?
Well, that's that professional, on that, what you gave us last week was professional development.
Yep.
So that's like coaching trips to learn whatever, catch up.
Yeah, I looked at that other sheet.
Miscellaneous,
Yeah.
That would be the only
whatever,
question I
just
have.
Yep.
equipment, whatever.
My concern, honestly, I mean, super transparent here, the 14,000, that looks great, but really, it's still $10,000 more that you're cutting someplace that is going to impact athletics. And honestly, if you went with option 2, that's basically like not having a CT. I mean, you're going to have a couple away games. So I almost think the experience is better being purposeful and saying it's only 3 sports that these C teams we're going to embed in. There might be a rotation of play. I mean, it's going to look very similar, but they might even get a play at home, you know what I mean, and have those experiences. And it's a $10,000 more cut. And so that, I mean, I'm just saying I'm leaning towards option 1. I think that it's, the money's going to have to come somewhere. It's going to hurt athletics somehow, and I think that experience is going to be, in some ways, maybe even better than it would be if they only had a couple away games. But
So a full C team, so a full third level
What
cut
is
then?
option
like your option 1 was the full cut for 24,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because I just feel like it's almost the same thing. How many away games does football get for a C team level?
3, I think.
3 away games where we can have some of our teams that we know are struggling a little bit more in the conference. We can have those boys play. They might get some home games. They'll probably get 3 games, and that they have an opportunity, maybe 2. I don't know, but.
And I think in a way we're cutting, if we did this, we cut the C teams, but you're not cutting the students. Just like if we have to cut a grade, we cut a teacher, you cut a teacher, but you're expecting those other 3 or 4 teachers to take more. Well, that's the same thing we're asking for the coaches to do. We're cutting that C team, but you better believe all these students are gonna go out for this, and the JP team is gonna be bigger, and you're gonna have to figure out a way to maneuver it. That's all I meant. I just want all of our students to have those same opportunities across the board for arts, for academics, and for sports.
Yeah.
And it's gonna come on. You're gonna have to be creative.
It's almost, I mean, to say cutting C team, what we're doing is just cutting C team competition. Like, it just, there is no longer a C team competition level.
Do you mind if I jump in here quick? I just want to give my couple cents here.
Yeah.
1.5. I agree. There's got to be compromises made here. The one sport I circle on this that I think is going to have the biggest problem if we merge. It's a merge. We're reducing down to 2 levels. The one sport I think that's going to struggle the most is football.
Yeah.
Because you got freshmen playing sophomores and potentially juniors, and that just is not a good fit. If I was going to compromise, I would go with keeping 3 levels for football, and then from an equity perspective, volleyball, right? So you have football and volleyball, and I would be willing to say basketball we roll down to 2.
But that's only.
That wouldn't cut.
That wouldn't cut enough, though, I don't think. And
Well, that's not what he says. Andrew said he'll find the money elsewhere. If we task him to find the money elsewhere, he'll find it.
But that was if you got to you said you need at least that $14,000 cut. Would that get you $14,000 cut if you only cut basketball C team?
I worry about football because I think you're going to lose a lot of kids, and they're going to open enroll, and it's going to end up hurting our numbers in the long run.
Sorry.
So if you were to do that, essentially what would change is option 2. The only thing that would change with option 2 is that we would cut additional coaching allocations out of girls and boys basketball. So that 14,000 would actually become a little bit bigger. And then you would keep football and volleyball. But then we would just have to know right now that going in, that would be the decision. Right.
When you said what would be bigger? What would be bigger? Sorry, I missed. The 14,000 would be bigger?
It would increase. The savings would increase.
If what?
If you were to take a hybrid model where you allow 3 levels of competition for fall athletics and turn off winter level 3 and spring level 3.
Well, spring already, I mean, they're not having it.
But we make that decision now so they can budget for it.
We already know they're not having it though, because numbers.
We put it in the budget, and so we need you to redline it so that it can't occur, and it allows us to free the money up. Otherwise, the money is frozen.
Fine, that's redline, because that's not even, there's no C teams even offered, so that's easy. That's redlined, right? But like, and I know we have to vote on it, but then it's only boys basketball that will have a C team.
So you would
I know we're redlining the girls because we're just saying it, but really it is only the boys that would have had a C team.
You would, yeah, you're redlining winter.
Yeah. Okay. So that would be, would that be more than, you're saying though, if we just let fall go, I have the worry about football too, to be fair, right? I do have that worry. It's the only sport I worry about because of the size matter, and it's all about safety for me. But if we were to let fall sports, which is 1 girl, 1 boy, have a full 3 levels, and we were to redline winter and spring, around how much savings would that be?
That would get us closer to probably around 18, 19.
Okay. So that's better than option 2.
Because winter is a lot of contests, so
okay.
Yeah, so if it's option C or 3, it's going to be not 24, it's going to be closer to 24 than the second one. So, and from an equity standpoint, I think we're fine.
Okay. And so that other money, because we're still $30,000 short, you're saying you've got about a $9,000 savings with, there might be a budget kind of change with fund balance, with the accounts for the uniforms for track, which would be $8,000 to $9,000 potentially out of there. So you were still missing $20,000. And I'm assuming that'll go towards the training kind of stuff. You did talk a little bit about equipment cuts and other uniform cuts, stuff like that. That's where it'll come from.
The cut becomes a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And so if anything, it's a little bit bigger. It's probably a little over 15%. So athletics will make it an appropriate cut, probably a little bit bigger than we were going to, and still be able to deliver the same outputs we were going to when we first started this conversation last week.
Okay, and because I mean, ultimately, the equitable piece of it here, right, is we are cutting 10 to 15% from every one of our budgets, if I recall, right? And so it's teaching, or staff, as well as $45,000 is that 10 to 15% mark from our athletics. Yep.
This will probably be more like 16, 17.
Okay, and I just, okay.
All right. First of all, more discussion. We can try to get a motion framed up and then have discussion and then vote and see where that lands. And if that doesn't pass, we can try to frame up another motion.
Well, I'd love to hear what people think about just the fall option running and then cutting the other 2, because it's kind of in the middle.
I'll be honest, I think here's where I'm at right now. I guess I'm in favor more of option 1 and putting the trust and faith then in our fall sports coaches and Mr. Caudell to find appropriate level of competition activities to place them in. I feel like the rest of it's getting too complicated. We're saving pennies on the dollar, and let's move on and put some trust in them to find the right opportunities. That's where I'm currently at now.
So option one, just to be clear, is full cuts across all teams.
See, it's,
Across all.
we're redlining them all, but to be honest, number-wise, it's impacting 3 C teams. It's unfortunate to me, football, it is, but I look at, we're not the only one, I looked at the numbers. There's other schools that, 3 other schools that don't have C teams. It's probably not an uncommon trend.
Well, and it may be more of a trend with the number of referendums that didn't pass and everybody else needed to make cuts. So this may not be unique to us this year. It may be something that happens to other schools around our area next year. So and same with Pat, I wanted the reassurance that the coaches would do their due diligence with the kids to make sure they do get some sort of competition if they can figure out with other conference teams how to make that happen. If you can figure that out, that would be great. And my whole goal was to make sure these kids were still able to participate and we're still giving them the opportunity to participate. So it's just the competition is out of it.
I want to clarify one thing. Sorry for getting me cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I just want to clarify one. So by cutting all C teams, that's basically the $24,000 savings we're talking about on option one. If we chose the fall athletics to have C teams, we need to come up with another $5,000 elsewhere. Is that right? So it's about a $5,000 savings if we cut fall C team sports.
Yeah, which is a little bit less than option 2, so we can make that work. I can make the cut out of the athletics budget. So any of the 3 options that have been discussed, any one of them can work.
I think the key is you can make it work, but it's still coming, it's still impacting athletics. So that's not, I guess I don't know.
I mean, this gives us the exact area where it's coming from. We know that up front. The coaches know that up front.
It's transparent.
You know that up front, so when it comes to now making the cuts with equipment and whatever else you need to make, that number is not quite as large.
Okay. I think we can, unless there's other discussion here, somebody can make a motion here.
I move to eliminate all level 3 competitive teams in fall, winter, and spring.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion, a second, whole roll call. Vicki?
Aye.
Helen?
Aye.
Tanya?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
And I am a nay, so that one passes. Thank you. It's tough discussion, and none of this is fun, none of this is easy. And we will, as a board, move on from it, and as a district, we'll move on from it. All right.
Can I just, want to verify, so Pat, you made the motion?
Yes.
Tanya, you seconded? Okay. The motion is to eliminate all level 3 competitive teams in athletics for fall 24, winter 24-25, and spring 25.
Correct.
Fort 1?
Competition.
Competition, okay. Got it.
All right, let's move on. Item 6, consider adding language to the superintendent contract.
Yep, we're putting this forward because there's obviously continues to be a lot of misinformation. And I thought it was important for the board to be clear with the community and also with our staff. So with regards to if there are any freezes, if staff are not getting raises, it is imperative to make sure that everybody understands that administrative contracts and the superintendent contracts are equal and that there is no raise for any administrator or a superintendent. And the contracts do not say that, but because people question it, I believe you should pass a motion tonight. I encourage you to put it in that if staff do not receive an increase, the superintendent would not receive an increase, and I hope it's a 5-0 vote.
Any discussion on this one?
I mean, I would like to say that, Rick, I really appreciate that you brought this forward and said that there's a perception piece out there and we need to clarify it, and you wanted this added to your contract, and I appreciate that. I think it speaks a lot and just kind of answers some of the assumptions that people might have, so.
Anybody? Well said, Tanya. All right, we can take a motion on this one.
I move to accept the language to the superintendent 2024-2025 contract to read, the Prescott School District Superintendent will not receive an increase in wages for the 2024-2025 school year unless the board approves staff increases for the 2024-2025 school year.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That one carries, and that concludes business. Thank you. We're going to move on to information discussion. The first item is the update on Health Partners Healthcare and dental renewal rates.
Yes, we are at the end of a contract with regards to Health Partners. We do have coverage for the 24-25 school year. We have been working with Sean Fitzgerald and our vendor to be able to work with Health Partners for renewal rates. I am extremely, extremely happy based on the usage for our staff. We are able to announce that there will be zero increase with regards to health costs for our staff going into the 24-25.
He's actually not saying the best part of that.
It is actually a half, basically a 0.5% decrease. It'll save the district $10,000 from where it currently is. However, it was planned to have a 9% cap. That means that we are saving in the projections for next year $200,000 based on healthcare costs that are flat. We are at the end. We will be bringing back, we have asked for a negotiation to occur with Health Partners to extend the contract into the 25-26 school year. We hope to be able to bring that back to you during the May board meeting. This will allow our HR department to open our open enrollment with regards to benefits. This is when all staff can choose. If they are currently not on the plan, they can opt in for dental and health. They can move from family to individual, or they can move from individual to family. There are no reductions or changes with regards to the deductibles or the HSA contributions.
Anybody comments on this one? Probably the best news of the night.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to item B, recap of the operating levy update and actions taken on April 10th special meeting.
So you approved the minutes earlier tonight. They will be published in the Pierce County Journal. They also will be on our website by Friday. You know that you took 3 actions. The first one was that you directed the school board, you directed the finance director and myself not to make a purchase of another bus, 77 passenger bus for the 24-25 school year. We also know that as difficult as it is, we used a rubric that said if we provide a service and the service is not required by law and we do not receive any reimbursement for federal or state dollars, that those services would be up for first removal. That means that students that are within a 2-mile walking distance, with the exception of some hazard zones, that in-town busing would be eliminated. This allows us now to reduce our transportation staff by 1. We will be reducing our fleet by 1. We will be selling 2 buses on the open market through the state, what's it called? The state something or other online bidding. Obviously, they're a little bit older buses. And the other, I think those were the decisions that were made last week. What did I miss?
The food service.
Oh, food service, yes. We have worked and reached out. As you know, it is really important also to clarify. Prescott Public Schools is not required to provide food service to St. Joe's. We have done that in a partnership. It does cost the district $60,000 to run that program. We are not losing $60,000. We are reimbursed through student fees. We are reimbursed through commodities. And then St. Joe's does have a clause in the contract to make sure that we break even. Similar to the discussions that you had with regards to our teaching staff and to our athletics, is that when we are asking staff to do more with less, it becomes very difficult to basically start behind the start line, $60,000 behind the start line, and have to do all that effort in federal and National Food Service. I do want to let you know that we will continue to reach out to St. Joe's to identify some alternatives. We are working with the principal and looking at whether or not we can cater or have some other proposals, and those would come back to you later in the summer. So with that, that's kind of based on the decision earlier tonight. That kind of completes the 2 tiers of reductions. Now we start Sue and I will continue to work based on where we stand on the fund balance. We'll give you an update as we continue. Obviously, it's a fluid number. And then you know that the budgets usually are not finalized until October of each year. We'll accelerate as best we can, but it is something that we want to make sure that we're accurate. And we also know that some staffing and individuals, as you saw tonight, take different jobs or leave the profession or retire, and those still are available to some staff. And so we are now going to be in a pause situation as we rebuild our budget heading into the fall.
Vicki, any comments on the meetings last week?
No, none of these cuts were easy. Yeah, I don't like that Prescott doesn't have sidewalks for kids to walk to school, but we as a school district can't continue to support something that we're not reimbursed for. So that's not an easy one. But yeah, we needed to make the cut. So just go from here.
Helen?
No, we had to make the cuts and that's where we came from.
Tanya?
I just wanted to comment that, and I'm happy it's on the agenda, which means I can speak about it, because normally we can't speak about things that people bring up, but transportation a little bit, there is like some stipulations that come with that, and so hazard zones, 2-mile walking radius, so there's things like that that we're still kind of exploring. So those, it's not finalized yet, nor will it probably be anytime soon, but hopefully we can come back and make sure we define a little bit more what that looks like for our community and stuff like that, and see what we can do to partner. And then I just wanted to add to, like, we've said it for 6 months now, but right, the community had an option to vote and to decide how we're budgeting and using our funds, and the community voted that we needed to cut this $1.2 million extra, and so unfortunately that's why we're in this situation right now, and there's things that we need to cut, and there's some things that I think efficiency-wise I think will be good for us in the long run. It's good for us to cut some things that we're looking at, or finding new efficient ways to do things, but these all hurt. The busing, the St. Joe's, being good partners, all that stuff really hurts. It's really hard decisions. I think it was unfortunate we had to talk about classrooms first, but we did, and I believe we're going to go into another closed session where we're talking about some tough decisions after this. So we're just partway through the other side of that pie. So, yeah.
Nothing much to add. I echo you guys all on the school bus thing. We do, for those who weren't at last week's meeting, I do have a lot of faith in Nicole and Principal McGee that they'll continue to partner with the St. Joe situation and try to help them out the best we can. So, no other comments.
I would just like to thank the administration. I know there was a lot of work put into getting us getting us prepared as a board with the information that you gave us to make informed decisions. And they worked tirelessly, probably longer than a week to put this together. This has been in the works, the what-if scenario has probably been in the works for months. And it's not anything that anybody wants to do, and they don't take it lightly. Every single decision that we made is going to affect somebody, it's going to impact somebody, and it's going to probably offend somebody. And we don't take that lightly. Every single decision that we've made, we put a lot of thought into, and we just want the public to know that we're not taking anything serious, anything lightly. This is not easy for us either to sit up here and make these decisions, because we know it, and we know how much it impacts you guys. And you're the lifeblood of the district, the bottom line, and it sucks, you know. I don't know what else to say. I want you guys to know, I want everybody to know that every decision that we've made, that the administration has prepared us for, has been thought out from each board member. Every board member has taken their time to think about the impacts of all the decisions that I've made, and this is what 1.2 million coming out of our budget looks like. For those that think that we have money, some magical bucket of money coming from the state, that's not true. This is what it looks like right here. 1.2 million looks like this. So if we want to come back sometime and get back to a position where we feel stronger, where the class sizes are smaller, we're going to have to put our heads together and come back with something that makes more sense, bottom line. So thank you. We'll move on to item C, the WIA-NIL update.
This is, again, one of those things that is time dependent. I want to be really clear that it's a decision that WIA is about to make. If they make the decision, they have a rule that it automatically goes in. They can't make a decision on their constitution and have it take effect fall 2024. This decision, Andrew will tell you, is coming up next week. If they don't approve it, everything we're talking about is moot. So we're not going to go in depth. We're going to go through these slides quickly, just so that you understand that if they do approve it, we want to make sure that all families and every student doesn't inadvertently make a decision that would not only jeopardize their eligibility, but it could wipe out a team's eligibility for WIA sports. Andrew?
Yeah, so next week, the WIA membership's getting together, and we have a name, image, and likeness proposal on the table. Currently, student athletes are not permitted to make money off of their name, image, and likeness, but we are potentially moving in a direction in Wisconsin where high school athletes can do that. So I'm going to run through the proposal really fast so you get an idea of what it is, and then answer any questions that you have. Go to the next slide. Okay, so next slide. All right, so the currently athletes cannot make money. That's going to change. They can make money off of their name, image, and likeness. The prohibited activities, which is where I'm going to come in, I'm going to have to educate now families, businesses, staff, everybody about this in this new world we're about to venture in. Next slide. So one, athletes are not going to be permitted to use the district's NIL, so they cannot wear the uniform, cannot use our logo, marks, anything from the district, so they're going to have to do that completely separate. They cannot promote inappropriate activities or products like gaming, gambling, alcohol, tobacco, etc. The compensation cannot be contingent on their performance, and the compensation must be commensurate with market value. Personally got an issue with that one, but we'll have to tackle that later. The compensation is not going to be provided by the school or persons associated with the school, and this is where it's going to get tricky. When you go through this entire list, you'll probably have about 2 people left in Prescott that wouldn't fit anything on this list, because you're going from alumni to coaches to current or former athletes, parents or guardians of not of your current kid, booster club members, alumni, spouses, teachers, employees. Any business that gives money to the athletics department is eliminated. So you can think about all the businesses in town. So anyone who fits one of those categories cannot take part in NIL. Next slide. NIL activities cannot interfere with the student's academic obligations. That's broad, so we're going to have to define that. They cannot miss any practices, competitions, travel, or team obligations. They cannot hire an agent. High schools and their employees and anyone associated with the school are not allowed to help facilitate these deals. So the next steps for us is I put together a little task force of coaches to help advise me on what we're going to do. And so this is what we came up with. One, we're going to have to update a board policy so that it prohibits anyone in the district from being involved, because one, that puts the district at risk and it eliminates eligibility. We're going to need to update the activities code, because that's going to have to govern the student athletes themselves, and I'm going to have to update the coaches handbook to govern the coaches. If this passes, you will see the first draft of the board policy and the activities code next month. And then the other recommendation is we'll put in the activities code for contracts to be brought to me for review for compliance with the rules. I'm going to have to make very clear through documentation I'm not going to review for good business practice. That's going to be beyond them. So that is happening. That'll happen next month. And so what we're also going to ask for is an action item next month that would put a moratorium on Prescott athletes from profiting until August 15th, which gives me time to get the policies updated, because if we don't do that, technically they will be allowed to start this sometime in May, and we'll have a gap between they can do it and we'll have zero regulations around it, and it'll be a little bit of chaos in the first part of the summer. This is going to be new, and it's going to be a little chaotic, and it might seem a little ridiculous, but it's kind of where we're at.
And Andrew, just to be clear, WIA is doing this a little bit to stay in front of, if they didn't take these steps, is it possible that the legislature was going to do this as well?
Yeah, I believe one of the three branches of government would force this, and then it would be the Wild West, because they would probably force it with no rules, and then it would just be complete chaos. So we'll vote next week as a membership, 515 schools, majority wins, and we'll find out. So happy to answer any questions you have it, but that's where we're at.
So we're looking at a May board action item to prohibit the deals until August 15th before we implement it here in Prescott.
Yeah, and then you'll see first reading on a board policy and the activities code. I do the activities code anyway in May, the first reading, but it would include the provision on NIL for final action in June. July, no one's really doing anything anyway, and then August, we start having parent meetings for fall sports. We'll have to start educating and getting the word out if people want to start doing this, so.
Andrew, does Neola already have some policies and work on this that you're able to use?
Yeah, so they identified a policy in our list that we should add to, and so Courtney and I have that. That's what we'll look to.
Perfect.
So.
All right. I think all of our student athletes can wait till August before they start making millions. So.
Woo.
Remember, market value.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, market value. We'll have to define that too.
And Nike contracts.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And Andrew, stay there. You got the next one. We just wanted to make sure that people understand our varsity track is a community asset, and a lot of people access it for walking and things like that. We currently are in the season, but this summer, the entire track is being redone. And so do you want to just give an update on that?
Yeah, so it was brought to my attention that there was some conversation in the community about access to the track. Personally, I didn't really know what that was about, and then it dawned on me. At the end of last summer, with the building referendum, we replaced that fence. The old fence, for whatever reason, had a gap built into it, so it was never really open. It just was always open because
It's never
there was
really
a
closed.
gap in the fence.
I fit right through that.
So so Tanya was one of the people that was going through. So when we replaced the fence, we of course didn't build a fence that had a gap in it. So it was interpreted that we locked it, which we didn't lock it. So once I figured out what was going on, we are going to create times where it's open. I got a piece of plastic that Mr. Schmidt in his class is going to engrave. We're trying to figure out if it's worth doing now because we're in the middle of track season, and once the track season ends, the facility is being closed for the whole summer, for the track being redone. So we're aware that it's now closed, which it really was never open. We're going to get it opened for the community. We didn't close it on purpose. We're sorry, and more to come. That's the update on the track. So
That was as clear as mud. But thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And then do you want to?
Yep. So the last item I just wanted to confirm with the board is that on April 3rd, we did close.
Did you miss the, I don't know if you wanted this one or not.
No, I did the bond. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I just wanted to point out that we talked a little bit about the varsity track because that's construction. This time period is about 10 weeks. We need to be done by August 1st, so there's going to be a lot of construction. Also, over at the middle school, we're replacing a lot of the brickwork. So you have the parking lot in between. It's not going to be the easiest, but I also wanted to make sure that people understood how beneficial the work that Mike Koika did on his 10-year planning, that the bond referendum that the community supported in 2022. This spring, we have now 2 boilers that have gone offline that cost and would have cost the district $100,000 to repair this year. We were able to, based on Mike continuing to use every MacGyver tap he could to keep them running, and all of those boilers are being replaced under the bond referendum this summer. So we talk a little bit about having foresight, being able to plan. You don't want to have to wait until it breaks because those are huge expenses, and those are things that I think with the foresight, the planning has paid off. So that concludes just kind of the summer construction. Starting next week, Market & Johnson will be back on site, and you see some of their equipment starting to be parked on site as well.
Board, any comments on anything on this one, on those?
Way to go, Mike.
Yeah, yay, Mike. All right, let's move on to the bond defeasance.
Yeah, we did complete the bond defeasance. You got the closing papers on April 3rd, 2024. We used $910,000 to pay off previously voted approved bonds that were carrying 4% interest rates. This saved the community $450,000 of taxpayer interest payments. On top of steps that the board took previously, we are now up to about 1.5 in savings for our community based on paying off bonds earlier than they were required.
Any comments here? Keep rolling.
No.
All right, that concludes the information discussion, so we'll move on to recognition of visitors. Thank you for sticking around. Anybody else? Come on up. Just state your name again. Same rules as last time.
Jamie McDonough, City of Prescott.
Yeah.
I will just start by saying thank you. I think we all do realize that this has been a lot of hard decision-making and hard discussions. But I want to piggyback a little bit on something Sarah said earlier. And last Wednesday, we sat here talking about those class sizes, and Tanya, you were the only person who kept coming back to it, and it was crickets at times. And we sat here and talked about 26 7-year-olds in a classroom, half of whom probably don't know how to read, okay? You were the only one advocating for us, for our kids. My kid is in that 2nd grade class this year that's being pushed from 5 sections to 4. I know a lot of his friends. Good luck to those teachers next year. Talk to the specialists who've had them in 4 sections all along. Crickets. And we sat here for 50 minutes tonight. 50 minutes talking about C-team sports. I love sports. I love sports to a fault. We're going to Milwaukee for basketball. We were in Plymouth for basketball last weekend. My kids had hitting lessons tonight. I love sports. I'm not saying cut the sports. But my goodness, when we sat there talking about 26 little kids in a classroom and nobody had anything to say, and it was, let's be done. And we talked about sports for about 20 minutes last week and couldn't make a decision and came back for another 50 minutes. Disappointed. Oh, there's my 2nd card for the day. Disappointed.
Anybody else care to be recognized?
All right. I know I'm back again. Thank you.
You still have 2 minutes from before, so.
Oh, thank you. I hope I can hit it this time. My name is Jacob Barker. Again, I'm a 10th grader here at Prescott High School. Seeing as I don't want my voice to be heard as being I'm going to back away from that, being the only voice speaking for all about 450 students at Prescott High School, but seeing as I'm the only one who is here tonight, it seems that might be interpreted, but I want to make it clear it's not. When I sit here for 2 hours, I see a board who has to make some very tough decisions for a community who has put some tough decisions on top of them. And I know everyone in this room wanted the referendum to pass. I obviously want a referendum to pass, but we do not have a referendum passed. And yet I sit here for 2 hours and I see an hour wasted on C-Team sports. And I see an hour wasted on deciding to cut C-Team sports to save $45,000 in a bucket of $1.8 million. That does not put trust in me, in this board and this administration, who I know I've worked very hard for this to come to these decisions. But my trust is very minimal at the moment. I'm sure the board is aware, and I'm sure that the administrations are aware that due to Wisconsin law, all open enrollment to other school districts is required by April 30th, the end of this month. And I know most people won't even watch this video recording, but I don't see trust in this board to uphold academics. I see a board who puts athlete-student in what should be student-athlete. And I think if somebody wants to pursue an education over sports, they should consider moving. I see an hour wasted on C-Team sports, and I see 2 minutes put on salaries, and I see 0 minutes put on classes cut, classes that will be for sure staying. I know there's some laws about how you have to have closed sessions with teachers, and I understand that. I fully understand that. And I understand that there are some things that I can just not know, being a 10th grader. But I want it known that I'm looking for my education. And I want it known that I hope others are looking for their education. And I want it known that I wish the board would give us more about our education. I thank you for all you've done tonight, and I thank you for the administration and the board and the teachers and any staff member at the school who's put in hours and hours and hours and hours and months and months and months and months of work to get to the very moment that we stand. And I acknowledge everyone who has come before me to stand at this post, and I acknowledge everyone who will come after me. But I please hope that in the coming weeks, we can come to a decision that will benefit students and their academic careers over their potential athletic millions. Thank you, and I hope you have a safe drive home.
Thank you. Anybody else care to be recognized? All right, so we're going to move on. Before we move on, I want to point out there was a closed session last week that we were in closed session, and you can look up the minutes. We were in closed session for over 2 hours, so we do put a lot of time in to all the decisions that we make. But it's unfortunately a lot of it's personnel. We can't have open session around personnel, so I wanted to point that out. Before the board can now consider a motion to convene in closed session under the following exemptions in room A117, the Wisconsin Statute 1985-1C, for the following: board notice of additional preliminary non-renewals, non-licensed personnel, non-renewal notice, and review of superintendent 2023 goals, final discussion. So we need a motion for that.
Do we need a time?
Yep.
I move to go into closed session beginning at 8:15 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's just roll call. Ellen? Vicki?
Aye.
Tanya?
Aye.
Pat? Aye. I'm an aye as well. We will convene in closed session at 8:15. We will be adjourning from closed session back into open session with no additional action items, and we will immediately adjourn from open session just for awareness for those. So thank you for coming. I appreciate you sticking around.